starting up now, and
okay.
And so the recording's just started. So
okay,
just to add any pressure for you, sorry.
Oh, no pressure, thank you very much indeed. Right, so options at 18 plus. This is information for parents and students. So, okay, so going forward, first of all, let's be clear. At 18, it's important to have more than one career pathway option. Okay, I'm going to say this more than once. I think with the world we are now in, there's less predictability about what's going to exist next summer. And I think, therefore, thinking and planning career options is key. So, linked to this, when applying to universities is in some respects relatively easy because it's via the UCAS portal. It's one portal and you apply through that. So you're only filling it in once, okay, once you've done all the thinking. However, it's often not unusual if you're applying for apprenticeships is to apply for 15 or more of them. They are like applying for a normal job, and I'm going to talk a bit more about them later. The UTC, we have students who apply to both UCAS and apprenticeship. And to be honest, it's one of the things we advise. We advise students to have more than one option because you really don't know what's going to happen. And we encourage students to be creative, individual, and we have had more than 4 times the national average number of students going to apprenticeships, but it does vary year on year. We haven't got a fixed model for all our students. We say it's got to work for the individuals, and you'll see later on that we support them no matter what they want to do and what they want to apply for. We try and put some bespoke support in place. So firstly, let's focus a little bit on this idea of university and UCAS. So first thing to say is everyone's UCAS is completely different. They are unique to the individual. And in fact, UCAS use plagiarism software. So they don't want something that just looks like somebody else's. So each student will have their own UCAS portal, their own logon. And there's a handbook outlining the steps of how to apply. The thing that students need to be doing is they need to be doing their research now. They need to start looking at university courses and comparing them, seeing what are they going to learn, when are they going to learn it. Looking at the university itself. Is it a campus? Is it a town or city university? Look at where the graduates from the university go. Look at where that course links with. What businesses does it link with? And reading Unistats is one of the sites that UCAS links with, which gives the students an idea of how that course is assessed. Is it assessed by loads and loads of exams, or are there projects, coursework? How is it assessed? Because it's important that the way the university course is assessed works for the students themselves. When you're looking at courses, always have a safe option. So just thinking that a course that asks for A star, A star, A star is naturally the best course, I'm going to pose a question, okay? And I'm going to ask, is that always the best? Courses that very often, and you know, it's not always the case, that's why it's important to research, but very often courses that are asking for very high entry grades have end of year exams and possibly less project and less coursework. Whereas courses that may be asking UCAS points, so they may not stipulate the grade, they may ask you for a points total to get in, they, not always, but in many, many cases, have a more varied way of assessing success. So please look carefully at courses. Sometimes students don't know what course might suit them. You can put into UCAS, let's say, I'll give a random thing, architecture. You can put that in and actually just scroll down, and you can see sometimes some of the jobs that might exist as well, because it gives you a clue of what you can study. So it's absolutely fascinating to do your research. Once students have got their ideas of where they want to go, then their personal statements are uploaded. Once they have completed their part, then they submit their UCAS, and it sits in the school part where references are uploaded. And a lot of effort is put into by the team to make sure that those references really work for the individuals. They are very bespoke, okay, and work to try and make sure that they complement, while being absolutely factual, what the students have written in their personal statement. All applications are proofread before being sent off. We certainly don't want poor applications being sent off. There is a payment for this. It's an approximate cost at the moment, but we can have a look, but there is a cost. There's the calendar, and you've got details of the calendar. I'm going to draw your attention to one or two things. So year 12 in the summer is the decision-making process. Really, please start looking at things earlier rather than later. What you don't want is, you don't want students starting year 13 and being distracted by trying to decide about university and researching potential apprenticeships and taking their eye off their education, because that, of course, has an impact on their final grade, or it could do. So what we want is, we want the decisions made early so that students can really focus on their grades, and then they know they're more likely to get them when they do accept this great place that they found their perfect solution, and they know they're going to get their grades. So really, summer, September, and certainly very, very early October is finishing writing your personal statement. Your deadline should be in, your first draft should be in September. Thinking about your CV, updating that, and of course, getting a draft of letters of application. But it is only a draft. It's not the one you're necessarily going to send in, and I'll mention more later. October the 15th is the deadline for any applications for Oxford, Cambridge Medicine and Veterinary Sciences. Okay, so that one. And of course, I'm going to mention the last one here, which is the final deadline, which is January the 14th. But please don't think that you can just hand it in on the, on the 14th. Staff need to put together a proper reference. That takes time to get that proper reference done. So really, you should be looking that October half term is the deadline for getting things onto your UCAS site. Moving forwards, there are key people. Predicted grades come from your teachers. So the students go around their teachers for their predicted grades. The references come from form tutors and Mr. McAfee and Miss Hart work on those. There's plenty of people who help with personal statements, form tutors, Helen Jones, myself, Mr. McAfee. And actually, most of your subject teachers will, of course, put their views in and help. Payments are down to parents and students, though. A few things about personal statements. So let's check I've got these. Yep, got it back in. So first of all, why a personal statement? Whatever route any student decides, the personal statement promotes your positive and desirable points. For university applications and for apprenticeships, it ends up as a very strong and important document. In apprenticeship applications, students do not necessarily use the whole personal statement, but what they end up doing is they end up taking paragraphs and sentences from their personal statement to complete their apprenticeship application. A well-crafted personal statement can really give the edge to over other applicants, and it has opened the door in previous years to more interviews, and with more interviews often students come away with a lower offer. So it is really, really worth putting the effort at this stage into a personal statement. It should tell them why you. So a personal statement is why should someone take you on? Why should someone put you in their university and not someone else? And I've put a little thing about there at the bottom about soft skills. I think I've mentioned it almost every time I've done an assembly to Year 12s. But it's where in your personal statement you are going to reference some of these soft skills and how they help you to be the right person, what skills you've got that put you above and beyond someone else. So it is key to start helping your sons and daughters recognize all the things they've done behind the scenes that have contributed to them as an individual, their soft skills. You know, I say to students when I'm sitting with them, well, have you been in a team? And they went, well, yes, I was in a football team. Well, why haven't you mentioned all the skills you've got from being in your football team? Negotiation, actually working as a team, supporting each other, listening, communication, all those things that come from being in a team. So sometimes getting the students to recognize all the skills they've got, it can be quite a challenge. That's why parents can be so helpful at this stage. A few do's and don'ts. So in a statement, okay, here we go. They've got them coming up. Key things, it's right from the heart, be honest, highlight strong points. Please, they must not include negative comments. They mustn't use slang or cliches or quote other people. Okay, so just a few little points there. And students say, what should I put where? And at this stage, when you're looking at a first draft, don't worry about the word count. There is a word count on UCAS, but we're more interested in getting information. Word economy is quite easy to sort out once the information's there. So here's some the kind of 4 paragraphs. The opening paragraphs will be something that's very catchy. In a few lines, it tells the reader why they are interested in this course or career. And it's the bit that makes someone unique. Whether, you know, what was it that stimulated someone's interest in engineering? What is it? Was it Meccano? Was it constantly being told off for the Meccano pieces left all over the floor? What was it that, you know, you've got to imagine that an admissions tutor is going to have potentially 2,000 personal statements to read. They want to read one and go, oh, quite like this person, or there's a bit about them, and carry on reading, rather than go, oh, another one like this, and put it on the maybe pile. You want someone to read it and go, oh, yes, very interesting, and put it on the, oh, I want to know more pile. In the second paragraph, they go through each subject and say why completing this links to the subject applied for. So that is thinking about their academic studies and how that is preparing them for their next stage at university. Now, the third paragraph, they look at their hobbies, activities, enrichment work, and explain what skills they've learned and how they will then utilize these at university. So this is where your soft skills come in. This is where you're referencing everything else you're doing. This is why it's so important that perhaps during lockdown, the students are completing their Eton-X course, or they are doing a free online course. They're putting something more in. And this is where this information goes. Finally, so again, a short statement of why you're going to be a good student and what you're aiming for in the next few years. Please don't worry too much at this stage. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can get your sons and daughters to think about some sentences where they might go in those 4 paragraphs, then we can help with them, rearrange them, add more detail, okay, and work with them on that. But hopefully that gives them a guideline of where they might go. Here's a little thing about student finance. Having been through it with my son, it's not too bad, actually. I was quite worried about it, but it really isn't too bad. So once you register for the finance, okay, then you just work through their process. Okay, so it's not too bad. Few things about apprenticeships now. So just for your information, apprenticeships have levels. So looking at the table, level 2 is a GCSE level. Level 3 is advanced or A level. Then you have the higher level apprenticeships and degree apprenticeship. You ideally want to work so that if you're studying level 3, you want to move on to level 4. But please be aware when it comes to engineering, there is the practical side of engineering as well. So there is very often a crossover between advanced and higher. So you may see apprenticeships advertised as advanced that then talk about moving on to higher. So they talk about HNC and HND. And an HNC, all right, is classed as level 4 and an HND is level 5. So they're not always as easily classified as I've got on this table. And it's always good to look very, very carefully about what they're going to offer, as I'll mention in a few moments. So how do you evaluate the different apprenticeships? When I talk to the students, I'm talking very much and saying what you're looking to build in your first 5, 6, 7 years at work is you're looking to build your foundations. You're looking to build your knowledge base that's going to enable you to move on. It's not always about getting the highest paid thing straight away if that's only in a niche area that you then can't progress from. You're kind of stuck. So you're looking for the longer term, not just the short term. So what qualifications for the apprenticeship are you going to get? Are there any prospects for a permanent position? And I know we can't say too much, and certainly apprentices who are finishing at the moment may find that they are not open to a permanent position because actually the company is contracting for a few years. But we can't say, so we can't say one way or the other, but you have to look at the history of the company and do they promote apprentices? Because if over a long period of time they've invested in apprentices, the chances are, even if the country goes into some sort of a recession, they're going to continue to promote apprentices. So does the company support long-term learning? If it does, then the chances are one apprenticeship there might move on to the next form of training and so on. Please get students to look at the ethos of the company. Will it actually suit them? When they started in year 12, we looked at the brand and the brand image, trying to get the students to realise that not every company will suit them, and they've got to get involved with what the company is and make sure they believe in it, because they've got to work with that. Where will they sit in the company hierarchy at the end of apprenticeship, and how does this compare to graduates? That's something you really have to compare. Will a graduate still come in above an apprentice? It's an interesting question. Please, the short-term benefits are often what the students look at: the pay, the holiday, the medical insurance. But they need to look at the longer term rather than just the short term. So remember, aim for the right apprenticeship that will set out the students up with their skills and knowledge for life. It may not be the company that someone initially wanted, but they can always move there later in their career. Please note you've got plenty of working years ahead, a good 50 years. Quite scary, really. Applying. Please note, applying for apprenticeships is like applying for a permanent position. The last time I applied for a permanent position was here at the UTC, and I do seem to remember spending immense number of hours perfecting my CV, my letter of application. So, you know, it is important to recognise that applying for apprenticeships takes time and effort. The application must be bespoke for the company. So research what the company requests, look at the person specification, the job description, and make sure that any skills you've got, they meet those needs. If the company is stating you must have a level 4 or grade 4 in English, most applications go straight into a computer. So if you haven't, you're going to get binned straight away. Okay, it's not negotiable. If they've said this, that's what they want. Okay, please make sure you note down in terms of your skills and experience how you meet the person specification and job description. This is where your personal statement comes in, because very often you've got all the answers in your personal statement already, and you can add more examples of your soft skills to demonstrate this. Employers do not expect an 18-year-old to have the same level of experience as, say, a 25-year-old. Make sure you've got your qualification information ready. All right. And if you do have certificates, such as your GCSE certificates, they need to be to hand as well. We very often say, please have a portfolio. Some companies may ask you to bring one. Some universities, actually going back a bit, will ask you to bring one. But it's really, really nice to have it when a question comes up and they might be talking in an interview about something and you go, well, would you like to see what I've done? It only takes a moment and it just opens up the conversation. It doesn't, if the student just sits there and says, look at my pictures, that's not going to work. But if they then start talking passionately about something they wrote about in business, or a CAD design that they did within the lesson, those interviewing are going to notice and take note of the passion that the student brings to the interview. So adding to it, the interview, students need to prepare. Again, link to the person specification, be able to talk about what they can offer. Talk about experience. This is again about it, and it's the experience they've had. And there I mentioned portfolio. Companies often look for the right person for them, and this person may need to fit with a team. So on interview, be yourself. Okay, never flippant or cocky. Professionalism is vital. And I've known students that have come away and the debrief from their interview was really, you didn't do anything wrong, but they didn't get the position, the apprenticeship. And at that point, it's really, really hard, but students need to recognize that the company are looking for that person that's going to fit with the team. And although you've got all the qualifications and you've got all the experience and you meet that person specification, you might not be the right fit for the team. And that's really, really hard for students to kind of take on board when they're 17, 18. So please note that one. What do we do to help? So we really offer a very bespoke service. We don't have every student doing exactly the same things, and we are here to go, yes, we'll help. So talk with us. We'll help emotionally. We'll do interview practice if we're asked. We'll check spellings. We rewrite personal statements. We help with applications. We'll check things through. It's be proactive and ask us questions. Ask for help. If we know what you're doing, then we'll be there to support and provide all these things. But you need to talk to us. Tutors will help as well, taking them through this entire process. But again, students need to take the lead. We cannot tell them what to do. They need to take the lead. But we will advise, we will pose questions. Students talk to me, I go, I'm going to be devil's advocate. You know, I'm going to ask you some difficult questions, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be doing my job. And hopefully it helps them to be sure that they've made the right decisions. Now, what questions could people be asked either on an application form or an interview? And these are great ones for students to start thinking about what they would say. First of all, why do you want this role? What experience have you got that prepares you for this role? So you can see there the crossover between the personal statement and an apprenticeship application. Because in the personal statement, you've talked about your experience and what skills it gives you. And that's where you're bringing that information across to an application. Here's a lovely one, which again builds so much on these soft skills. You know, tell us about a time you had to make a difficult decision. Why did you make the decision you did? It could relate to a sporting incident. It could relate to a career decision, place of work, something like that. Lovely question. Which achievement are you most proud of? Explain why. That's a lovely question. What are your strengths and what are your areas for development? Kind of very common ones. But I think it's important for students to see how the work they're going to do on their personal statement is likely to be used in an interview situation. It's all of this preparation that's key. So my advice to every student would be, look for a proper apprenticeship. And a proper apprenticeship may mean you are moving away from home. Think long-term, not short-term. Look at what the apprenticeship's going to offer and it's going to prepare you for in the long term, not just you're going to get £10 more a week or whatever it is in this other apprenticeship. Do your planning now, please, because you can't let your grades drop. Once you've decided what you want to do, then please make sure that you're going to get the grades. Sorry to coin a Brexit phrase, have a backstop. So if your main focus is getting an apprenticeship, please in reserve have a university place. If your main thought is a university, you don't have to stop looking for apprenticeships, because you may find a degree apprenticeship that you think, actually, I really fancy that one. That's not a problem. So please have a reserve. And please remember, you do not have to make your final decision until you have your results. So please keep your options open. So at that point, I am going to stop sharing, and hopefully there might be some odd questions. There might not. I don't mind. So I'm going to stop sharing and wonder if anybody's got any questions.
So if you're feeling really brave, you're more than welcome to say. If not, I'm more than happy for you to put them into the chat bar. There's a square kind of speech bubble in the top right-hand corner of your screen that you might be able to type any questions into. I suppose for me, the first question I might have is, oh, sorry, there's one coming in now. Where's the best place to look for apprenticeships? Oh my gosh, unfortunately, there is no one central place for apprenticeships. One of the, and Mr. Mack will interject in a minute, but one of the things I say to students is go and start looking at some of the big companies, because it's the big companies that tend to have more apprenticeships, and you can start getting an idea of what exists there. Which is one thing. Mr. Mack, what would you say about applying for, where to look for apprenticeships?
There are, hopefully I'm not muted, there are a number of government websites that we would direct you to, and the government websites are particularly good. So the apprenticeship, if you put apprenticeship website into Google search, the ones based around those attached to government are actually generally the better ones because they're centrally used. That said, and this is quite important to recognise in some of the more specialist engineering, particularly apprenticeships that come out, we're aware of particular firms like Mercedes, some of the F1 teams. They will post their own apprenticeship applications, and when we get hold of those, we'll then forward them on to parents and guardians. But you should also register. There are a couple of sites like Indeed and one or two others where we would encourage certainly Year 13 students by Christmas to have registered with one apprenticeship supply site, and they'll email directly to that student.
I think this is why apprenticeships are so hard in the application process compared to UCAS and universities, because there is no one point of that you go to. The students also talk amongst themselves, and that's really, really nice, that they will pass information from one to the other. And when we get anything directly, we will post it out to everybody so the students can see where things are. There's a question about personal statements at home. So could they please start their personal statements? And yes, of course, there is time with their form tutor when they're back in the building to perfect their personal statement. But we really need those basics there, you know, so that we can then kind of craft the personal state with them rather than trying to explore, well, the starting questions. And it doesn't matter what form it is, but if there's loads and loads of different sentences, we can help the students group them and then craft a well-written personal statement from those. So please, their deadline is the 1st of September, so they should be starting it and putting the basics together at home.
Do we have any presentations about apprenticeships in the RAF plan for the autumn? Do you have any ex-students that have got into RAF apprenticeships in the past?
Yes, we have, haven't we, John? We've got quite a few.
Yeah, we've got quite a few. We've had a number of students who've gone into the forces in various forms, RAF, Navy. We have and historically had the RAF and the forces recruitment out to the UTC. Now, in this unusual time, we are looking at what virtual careers guidance and advice we can give. And at the moment, we're contacting people like the forces so that we either have them in on the presentation, or I think the way that will go is they'll do virtual presentations, either that we will live stream or they will send us a pre-recorded careers advice and guidance assembly, which we will then live stream to year 12s and 13s in order to help them prepare for RAF or forces apprenticeships.
I was going to say the other thing is actually go and visit the recruitment office directly and go and start the conversation face to face, or it might be online at this point in time, with the recruitment office. I know I went down to Oxford with my son. We were looking at flying in the Navy at that point in time. We can also advise and support with the exams. And a lot of that's online, but if the students come and ask, we're always happy to try and support. And I know if there's different testing that the students might do for different jobs or applications, we can always help and advise. We don't know what's going to come up in the testing, but we've got quite a lot of experience to say, yes, come on, here's some practice ideas that you may be able to take away.
Can I add to that? Yeah. We do actually have a number of websites that we can direct to for things like standard psychometric testing, for things like the forces. We're also aware that there are elements of fitness in that. So we work with students to help develop fitness plans around the sort of requirements of the forces particularly. So in terms of the recruitment office, we've been told that they are going to try to open certainly the forces recruitment offices from sort of later on in this year, but until we get information as to exactly when they're open, we're not sure yet, but we will publish that. But Vanessa's point about going to see them face to face is really quite important if you get the opportunity as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the. Oh no, we've got another one. Could you share the psychometric test website, please? Do you know the website? Do you know what the website is? Just off the top of your head.
I haven't got it on me. What I'll need to do is out to you. Sorry, it wasn't a question I expected to be asked tonight. It normally comes up in the latter part of next term. So what I'll do is I'll get those websites together, and if you look out for a posting either in sometime this week or maybe in the next coming weeks, I'll get it out to you as soon as possible.
That would be really, hopefully that answers a few of your questions. Please be aware that this we're absolutely aware that this is it can be quite a big decision for a lot of people. So if you've got any questions at all, you don't have to feel like this is the end of the conversation. You're more than welcome to get in contact with us and go to the YouTube channel if you want to have a look at the video of this presentation to go back through anything that we've said. I've also put a link to the UCAS website, so that offers some support. It'll go through things like open days that you might want to be able to go to, although I don't know what universities are doing with those. I think a lot of them have gone, do you know if a lot of them have gone to virtual?
A lot of them at the moment are going virtual, and there's a lot of information on the UCAS website about that. So at the moment, a lot of what would be the traditional open days are going to go virtual, but UCAS have said to us and through our portal that may change. I would assume at the moment the vast majority are going to be virtual. And I would encourage people to use the UCAS website because it is a really, really useful website, both in terms of the types of degrees that are out there for students to study, and also where the point made earlier in the presentation about the careers that they lead to. Students, might have a field of interest, be that business or engineering, but actually where that is going to send their career becomes more clearer, I beg your pardon, as they do their research, which is why it's important at this stage.
Yeah, as I said, please feel free to put any more questions in the chat bar, or if you're feeling brave, you're more than welcome to just come and say. Although I don't think that's happened yet. If students don't yet know what they would like to do, should they make the personal statements quite general?
Right, so answer to that question, if they've got a field of interest, if they're an engineer or if they're a business studies student, actually a general personal statement context is okay, because we can hone the information when they become clearer in their direction. I think the key point is in the personal statement not to be afraid to put something down on paper, because it might be that is a useful part in what they define as their future pathway. And the critical thing, I think, in terms of the soft skills presentation part of it, is that they can be honed quite easily to a particular degree or to a particular apprenticeship. So if you have the basics down on paper, it makes that idea of honing it when you know the direction that much quicker.
Yeah. And that's the last one that's just come in. Just off the top of your heads, do you have any what kind of things do students tend to come and talk to you about? I think a lot of them for me have been answered for the concerns that I get. So things like where I might go for an apprenticeship would probably be one of the ones off the top of my head that I'd probably look at, or what I might do in the first step for my UCAS. But general concerns, general questions that students tend to have.
You start, John.
I think one of the things that I find, and I've noted, is that students are very reluctant to give themselves praise or to actually talk a lot about their personal skills. They find it quite difficult because they feel they're bragging or they're being too verbose, or and in some aspects they don't necessarily understand the relationship between their personal skills and how it fits into the world of work. As daft as it sounds, when Vanessa mentioned this idea of working as a team in a football team that they've been in, they just look at it as part of their everyday lives, part of their fun and their enjoyment. What we need to do is almost make them sell themselves. And one of the things that students come to me a lot about is, how do I not sound like I'm bragging? How do I not sound like I'm being, verbose? Or how do I not sound as though I'm being big-headed? Now, the answer to that is put your thoughts on paper and we'll help you. We'll help you to get that right. We'll help you to, draw back if it is, if it seems too exaggerated. But it's better to get something in that paragraph that we can work with, rather than be reticent, rather than be reserved. It's actually better to get ideas, thoughts, and your skills down there.
Yeah, I think for me, students come and talk and ask about different universities and the pros and cons of different universities, and are always quite rightly concerned about making the right choice. And what I tend to do is get them to look at the course in detail and look at what interests them the most. You know, they're going to invest a lot of time and a lot of effort where they're going to go. It's got to be somewhere that they're going to be comfortable, that they can see the end product, that they feel the course suits their learning style. And they can see that previous students have moved on to some very successful careers. And, you know, students come to me and say, but I'm not going to get the A star, A star, A star. And I say, some of the most fantastic engineers in this world today are not people that have got lots of high exam grades. It's getting that course that's going to open the doors for you and that you're going to be able to show your best at.
Yeah.
Go on, yeah, John.
Sorry, can I answer that? I think
Yeah.
that's an important point. We get a lot of students who come to us and say, well, you know, I'd like to go to a Russell Group University, or I'd like to go to a particular university. And my answer to that is why. Because it's very clear, particularly about the specialisms that we teach, is some of the best studying or places to study are not necessarily universities that would spring to mind straight away. You know, particular motorsports degrees, or particular business degrees, or particular travel and tourism degrees might be associated with areas of the UK where that university is based. If we think of Coventry, we send a lot of students to Coventry because it has a huge automotive history. It's been the epicenter of automotive design for a number of years. If we think of travel and tourism, we send a lot of students to Portsmouth because actually a lot of travel and tourism based industries and specialisms come out of their degree that's offered there. So it's not necessarily the university name. Whilst that is an important factor, it's the course, it's what offers the best chance of success. And also the idea that you are more likely to succeed if you are studying in a place where you are enjoying what you're studying, the course fits your needs and fits your career future plans.
Yeah, absolutely, John. Thoroughly concur. And please, the students shouldn't worry about their word count on what they're writing on their personal statement at the moment. Don't worry about that. That's easy to sort. It's sitting down and discussing all of those soft skills, what they really show, and getting the students to kind of, sing their own praises, which is a really, really hard thing to do. Is key at this over the summer.
I think the ones that are actually over word count are easier to
much. Yeah. Even I can do word economy on those.
If you're presenting with 3 or 4 lines, it's very difficult to create a personal statement out of that. If you're presented with 2 or 3 pages, actually honing it down, as that word before, but actually bringing it down to a manageable personal statement is a much easier way to go.
Yes, completely.
Well, unless you have got anything else that you'd kind of like to say, or that you had anything in mind that you'd like to get across, I think a lot of the questions that I think probably would have come in have been answered. But as if you didn't catch any of the, if you arrived after the start of the session, please feel free to go to our UCAS, I've said UCAS so many times, YouTube site, and you'll be able to re-watch the presentation that Vanessa did earlier on. It answers lots of the questions about what to do with the first steps. So unless there's anything else that you both would like to say, or if there are any other questions, I think we'll start to draw things to a close, if that's okay. For my part, thank you very much all for attending. I hope it's been useful. And if you've got any other questions, feel free to get in contact with us, particularly if you've got specific questions about the position of your son or daughter. We're happy to try and support anything that that you're looking to do. But thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to start to shut everything down. I'll definitely stop recording now.